We have Youth Sunday because I get to bring things that are a lot of fun. So some of you know that in October of last year, wow, that seems like decades ago already, I was so fortunate to spend the month in Ajijic, Mexico. The picture, Steve. And this is just the sign that's on the walkway near the lake. And I took a couple thousand pictures. I won't go through them all with you, but I'll share a couple of them with you today that are meaningful. I didn't know exactly what to expect when I went. I had very high hopes, and I was not disappointed on any level. It was an amazing experience. I stayed in a spiritual community called Namaste Village. And it's a small community owned by James Twyman, who you may have heard of because he is an Anglican Episcopal priest and a Franciscan friar. He's also a New York Times best-selling author. And you can Google him to find out more. He's a pretty cool guy. I met amazing people while I was there, and I enjoyed some really good food at Namaste Village. And each day after breakfast, we gathered in a common space for a time of meditation, for an inspiring talk by James. He was traveling across the country doing his one-man St. Francis show, which is just breathtaking. And he zoomed in to give us messages, and we had music, and what a exhilarating way to start the day in community with spirit. And what I found most intriguing about Ajijic was beyond the walls of Namaste Village. I ventured out every day. I just walked everywhere through the town. I spoke to everybody who would speak to me. Oh, very poor Spanish combined with perhaps their limited English, but at the same time, we always understood one another. And I think that's an intentional way of showing up, which speaks volumes about the permanent residents of Ajijic. It was remarkable. And I want to share a couple of experiences. I was compelled every day to this beautiful church. And the next picture, Steve. And there was something about it. No matter where I walked in the town, somehow throughout the day, I ended up at the church. And the church was open all day long. So people came and prayed. Every age person came. I was astounded to see how many young people came, kneeled and prayed. It's a devoutly Catholic community, and it was an amazing space. And I would meditate in the courtyard, which is the next picture. And just a beautiful surrounding. I got to witness a wedding from afar and a funeral, and to indulge in the beauty of the culture. In a small community, family was everything. And then the courtyard is where I sat a lot, which is the next picture. The bells were rung in the old-fashioned way in the next picture. It was amazing to see this man every day ring the bells manually. It was refreshing. There was a sacred shrine that was built back in the 1700s, halfway up a mountain. And you can see it as a little white dot on the next picture. Yeah, then that's a close-up of it, but the little white dot, I had the good fortune of hiking with a group that we walked to that shrine, hiked, breathed very heavily, stopped a couple of times to catch my breath, but a couple of times a week we would make our way to the shrine. And then on the night of the full moon, 2 other women and I hiked. And we would stop and watch the moon get brighter and the city grow darker. And as we rose, the brilliance of the moon hung over us. And you can see the city lights in the next picture. It was an extraordinary experience to be with these 2 women. One of them was an indigenous woman who, unbeknownst to us, in her sack, she carried a beautiful conch shell. So when we reached the shrine, she took out her conch shell and blew in the 4 directions. And we had goosebumps. It was just such a beautiful vibration. And she walked the mountain up and down without a flashlight, without missing a beat. She had done it so many times in her youth. And one of my greatest experiences in my month in Mexico was to witness this understanding of the people, that they understand that they are one with each other, that their success, their challenges are enmeshed with each other's, that they're not separate. Their lives are interdependent upon each other. And there's an amazing, intimate relationship with the people and the earth, and the earth and the people. All that grows on the earth, all that walks on the earth is honored and respected and taken care of with great reverence. And you can go ahead and flip this slide. And this was demonstrated in many ways. The first way was Friday evening, there was a gathering at the lake for a drumming circle. And it was a massive amount of people who drummed and chanted and danced, and it was beautiful. And then Saturday morning, there was a ceremony to welcome the sun. Now, how many of you got up this morning before sunrise and went out to the sun to welcome the sun? Did you do that? No. We take for granted that that sun is going to shine. The ceremony was conducted by a local tribal chief and translated by a young man. As we arrived, we came to the amphitheater, which is right at the lake, and the scent of sage hovered all around us. And each of us rolled out our blankets, and we laid in circles around the amphitheater. So here we were, lying on our blankets. Some people who were smart took pillows. And then as the ceremony began, each of us were given a sprig of rosemary. And I have just a few, so I'm going to give each of you a sprig of rosemary. Okay? And there's 2 there. You can pass them on. Okay, here you are. And smell the rosemary. You know what the rosemary smells like. We crushed this rosemary and just allowed that to, you know what rosemary does? The scent, how beautiful it is. Yes. So you can smell that. And then we chanted. And with the help of the translator who shared the words, there was a deep humbleness as we sat. and a deep humbleness as a reminder of how we walk on the earth with that reverence, with that honoring, and that we felt the warm embrace of the sun, which by now had risen and grown quite warm. We honored the generations who came before us, and we honored the generations yet to come. We honored the waters of the lake and how it sustains. And in the meditation, as it ended, we were literally dizzy with awe and wonder of the beautiful scene of the mountains to one side and the ripples on the water to the other side. It was magnificent. And as we stood, we gathered our voices together and sang and chanted all of the elements of the earth representing the stability and the foundation, the air, the movement, and our minds, and the fire, the passion and transformation, and water, the fluidity and change. We honored all of those elements. We chanted again to honor our ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. And we chanted to honor the interconnectedness of all beings. There is a great feeling of that oneness when there's a collective in that mindset. We feel that here on Sunday morning when we do our meditations together. And it was just a flowing of energy. And that's the way the people lived in the community, in that awe and wonder, in the respect and honoring and knowing that they were one with each other. For me, this was an overwhelming message that the native people of Mexico live by, and their message to the world is how they live their lives, how they honor tradition, how they celebrate the ceremonies, and the ceremony that I was privileged to be part of in the rising of the sun. And they remember that the source of all that is, and that we are one as humanity. And they remember to care for one another and to care for the earth. The message of the people was profound, although perhaps simple. So I kept the rosemary from the ceremony, and I stuck it in my pocket, and I carried it back to the States with me. And when I returned home, I looked and I looked around everywhere I looked for just the right way to keep it from crumbling, a place to have it so that I would always remember that experience and remember the message and the lessons of it. I looked for days, I even looked for weeks for the proper place and way to safeguard the rosemary that I had brought back. And then one day I was at Cracker Barrel with my daughter. You know, you go to Cracker Barrel? Yes. Well, Cracker Barrel has these little bottles of syrup, and I took it home. And I thought, well, I'll just peel that label off. You know what happens when you peel that paper label off? There's all kind of sticky white paper underneath and glue. So I rubbed it, smeared it all over the bottle, all over it. And I thought, well, I'll just put this in the dishwasher. So I did. Came out just as sticky and gluey as it was before I put it in. So I scrubbed and I scraped and I scraped and I scrubbed, and I just couldn't get that glue and stickiness off the bottle. So I boiled water. I set the bottle in, and I heat water and pour it in periodically. And after days of sitting in the hot water and me rubbing that glue off, I finally had a clean bottle. It took days. And I was able to carefully place what little rosemary I had left into this bottle as a reminder of my time in Mexico. We all have a message to share. We all have a way of being in the world. Like me, it might take a little while to clean and prepare a bottle for us to put our message in. We might have a hard time coming to what our message is. We might have to go through some stickiness in life to get to our message, to remove what hides the content of our bottle and the message that's in it. But it's there. So what might be your message? What might be the message that you have come to share with the world? And how we live that message. We say in our fifth principle, kids, do you remember what your fifth principle is? Say it louder. I give and do my best by living the truth I know. That's the kids' version of the fifth principle. I make a difference. Gosh, can you imagine if you grew up learning that? Yeah. Remember that your message in the bottle, and you all got bottles today with, surprise, blank papers in them, because you get to write your message, and you get to keep it as a reminder of what is your message for the world. And I want to tell you that I often tell the adults, and sometimes they listen, sometimes they forget too, but I often tell them that you have a way of being in the world that is unlike anybody else. Nobody else is just like you. Nobody looks like you, and nobody is just like you. And you are you for a purpose. You are you for a reason. So somebody, is what I tell the adults, is waiting for you to be just like you are. Because there is no one that, Jackson, there is no one that is thoughtful in the way that you are thoughtful. Nobody. Jocelyn, there is no one who is kind the way you are kind. Liam, there's nobody who's understanding the way you are understanding and generous with your laughter. Nobody like you. And Sawyer, there is nobody who is wise like you are. Nobody. So the world needs you to be all that you are, to share your laughter, your kindness, your understanding, your thoughtfulness, just the way you do it. Because somebody's waiting. Somebody needs it the way you give it. So that's your message. So we get to share that message with our world. It might be a friend at school who's having a hard day, or it might be, oh my gosh, I'm feeling kind of annoyed because the teacher gave us homework, too much homework on this nice spring day, too much homework. But that's how we show up, with our kindness, with our thoughtfulness, even when those kinds of things happen. So if someone is speaking unkind, you can be you. Because what's that fifth principle? I give and do my best to live the truth I know. Because, say it with me, I make a difference. Thank you. Yes, you do. You make a big difference. And we share those messages one way or another, from our personality, from our humanness, or from our spirit, from our divinity, with that neighbor who might seem unreasonable, with that coworker that challenges us, or even as the simple issue of traffic. And we all sit in traffic, but how do we sit in traffic is what's the really important thing. So how might your message that you write in your bottle, how might you carry that out into the world in a meaningful way? Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Charles Fillmore said, "There's no time more so than now that the world needs our unity message." And here today in 2025, I venture to say the same thing. It holds true still. There is no time more than now that the world needs the unity message, that the world needs your message of kindness, compassion, understanding, wisdom, of sharing that light, however little that light is or however big that light is, to sharing that light that is you. And we always remember to let all you do be done in love. Namaste.